All right, Lions fans, 2026 NFL Draft is in the books from about a week ago, and the Lions have selected 7 players. First pick with the 16th or 17th pick in the first round. They take Blake Miller out of Clemson. Really interesting tackle prospect that definitely has some upside and definitely is a really good player already. As you see here, playing against really good pass rusher out of South Carolina, who's probably going to be a top 5 pick next year. And he definitely held his own this game, taking on the power rush, and he tried some inside counters and stuff on Blake Miller this game. And Blake Miller really did hold his own here versus one of the best players in the country, so that was pretty impressive. And then you also see a lot of plays of him just completely detonating guys on the run. I definitely think with the Lions' run game, this is probably one of the more important parts of what you're looking for in a tackle. As you see on this one, he's going to just completely shut down this linebacker who's trying to kind of cut to the outside and get to the running back, and just able to make a nice quick move there to get him. And then this one climbing to the second level, another really nice play here. The linebacker's going to try to put a move on him here to cause some hesitation. But Blake Miller does a really good job in keeping his feet moving and throws him to the ground. Really nice play there. And I'm really excited to see what that's going to look like with the Lions offense and bringing in Isaiah Pacheco as that kind of number 2 to Jahmyr Gibbs. And yeah, I really do think it was important for the Lions to invest in offensive line in the first round. And I really think they had to take a tackle just because of what they did in the offseason. They created a gaping hole and you pretty much had to draft somebody. And this is kind of best case scenario. You got a really good player who's only 22 years old and he's already really good. And I just really think this could be one of the best tackles in the draft. So yeah, really a lot to get excited about with Blake Miller. And then trading up in the second round, they take Derek Moore out of Michigan, the edge rusher. As you can see on this one, getting right around that guy. And this one, 71. He's putting a nice power move on him. Pretty solid player. They traded right above the Ravens to take him. The Ravens wind up taking Zion Young with the very next pick. So we'll have to see how that works out. But it does look like Derek Moore has all the tools you want for a solid number 2. Has some power, has some quickness. He doesn't have a lot of like inside counter stuff. Most of the time it wasn't working, but you see here with the power getting right by that guy. That is what you want. And here you see versus Proctor on Alabama, pushing him right back into the quarterback. A couple nice plays versus Alabama, and definitely looks like a guy who has all the tools to be that really good player opposite Aiden Hutchinson, and hopefully we can bring this defense to becoming one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. If you can get another solid player on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson, I really do think this could be that guy. And then after not having a third round pick because of the Isaac Tesla trade last year in the draft, we wind up taking Jimmy Wolder in the fourth round, number 30 there, linebacker. And he does profile as more of a run defender, not the fastest guy for sure. But as you can see, he does diagnose really quickly and he gets to the ball and he is a big hitter. Here he's going to take on the guard or the pulling tight end and blow that one up. And on this one, he's going to kind of swoop inside, make the hit. And another play here, quickly getting to the ball carrier and putting him down. And then you're going to say some other plays here, quick to react. And he also has some good acceleration. And that just allows him to get to where the ball is going in these quick throws. And I do think you will see a lot of plays like this probably in the NFL where he sees what is going on and he's going to get there faster than some guys who maybe have better tools or whatnot. But here's another one where he just gets there, sees it. And they also will line him up to rush the passer sometimes on third and really long here. As you can see, puts a nice move on the tackle. And 58 kind of lets him go. So it's kind of like, maybe not the best rep there, but he does a good job of tracking down the quarterback on this one. Doesn't allow Aiden Childs to get away, who is a pretty quick guy. So it is one of those interesting picks that, maybe he could just be a run defending linebacker, but he also shows some upside in coverage with the ability to see what's going on and find guys around him in zone coverage and not just kind of stand there like a lot of linebackers do in college. And yeah, we'll have to see if he winds up being more of a 3-down starter or just kind of like a run defender. But I do imagine on like third and really long, he probably will come off the field because they do have Malcolm Rodriguez, who is really good in coverage. Malcolm Rodriguez on obvious passing downs. And then Jimmy Wolder could be the guy out there on like 2nd and 6 where they could throw, they could run. I think that does seem like the Lions' style to kind of be able to be out there in their normal base defense and have a good run defense kind of personnel no matter what the situation is. And then in the 5th round, the Lions take Keith Abney out of Arizona State, cornerback, 5'9", who has some really good ball skills, but also is a really tough tackler. You'll see a lot of plays like this one. He forces a fumble, but he just comes down and hits and doesn't care about being a little smaller or whatever. He is a physical player, and he's also pretty good in zone coverage. And that's kind of like the profile on him. So he is a guy who kind of fell a little bit because of his height, I think, but I do wonder if the Lions are going to look at him as more of a nickel or more of an outside corner. I think he has kind of the tools to do either, but when a guy is this good of a run defender and is a really good tackler and makes big hits, that kind of makes me maybe want him more in the slot because it just gives you more opportunities to make high impact plays versus the run and blowing up screens and stuff. So yeah, potentially the Lions could try him at outside corner because it does have the ball skills you kind of want. Even being a little shorter, I do think he will get his hand on some footballs and get some interceptions, and he's a feisty guy at the catch point, and then he also makes some big hits. But I do think if you put him at slot corner, I do think that's probably where you're going to get the most impact plays because you're just closer to the ball. You're going to have those screen plays where you're just blowing it up. And yeah, those kind of players are a little easier to find, but I do think Keith Abney is a little better than most of those kind of good run defending slots. He also has some coverage upside. So yeah, I really did like what I saw. I watched his game versus Baylor, and he was just making plays all over the field and not getting targeted very much when he was in man coverage as well. Then in the 5th round, the Lions select Kendrick Law, wide receiver out of Kentucky. Looks like more of a gadget slot kind of guy who played running back and kick returner for Alabama for a couple years, and now in Kentucky showed a bit of upside as an actual slot receiver, kind of running routes and stuff. Did show some pretty good hands and also some run after catch. They did throw him a few screens and whatnot. And he was a decoy in a lot of plays, but the few times I saw he did get the ball in open field, he did make some plays. And here's the play you're going to see going around a lot on Twitter where he catches the screenplay versus Tennessee. Is going to make an inside cut, then cut back outside, turn on the jets, and then it is that speed taking it all the way for a touchdown. And that's what you get really excited about with these kind of slot gadget players, is they can make a guy miss and, get some good yards after the catch. And here's an interesting play. He sees the scramble drill going on, makes a nice catch and breaks a tackle. And you see a lot of broken tackles on his film. When he catches the ball, he is not trying to go down. So yeah, the quarterback really should have thrown this one. But so yeah, Kendrick Law does a pretty good job on this one of just seeing that the quarterback is starting to scramble, going with it, catching the ball, breaking the tackle. And yeah, I do think this gives the Lions a little bit of insurance as far as that slot position. They did just sign Greg Dortch, but you're getting kind of a younger, potentially more upside kind of role at that position. We'll just have to see what happens going forward. And I do wonder about the wide receiver position in general for the Lions because you do have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's insanely good, and then also Jameson Williams, who is kind of underpaid at this point. And some Lions fans might say, oh, he's just like a deep threat, but he's really a lot more than just a deep threat. And he's only making about $20 million, I think. And we just saw a receiver in the open market get like 45, I think it was, with Alec Pierce, and that is insane. I don't really think the difference between Jameson Williams and Alec Pierce is that large. I really think Jameson, if he hit the open market today, would easily clear 35, probably something like that. I think Jameson is an incredibly good deep threat, but he's also insanely good after the catch. He's a really good blocker, one of the best blocking receivers in the NFL easily. And then I really do feel like in 2025, Jameson did a really good job running routes and showed a lot of upside when it comes to just being a real receiver. So yeah, I do think the Lions have to potentially look forward. And I do think that's kind of what this pick was a little bit is, hey, Jameson might wind up leaving wind up getting traded potentially, or maybe we just might not be able to retain him. If the cost goes up a lot, I definitely could see that. And then it would be just like a mine with St. Brown with Isaac Tesla. And then somebody like Kendrick Law maybe playing in the slot. So yeah, I do see this pick as potentially future-proofing the slot wide receiver position on the Lions, but also giving them a solid kick returner for this year. And we will have to see if he can compete with Greg Dortch to kind of be the main guy that comes off the field when they need that kind of fourth receiver or another slot receiver out on the field. And then in the 6th round, they take Skylar Gill-Howard, who you do see quite a bit of pass rush moves here versus this is Oregon State. And also there were a lot of good plays versus Kent State. And I wasn't really too interested in watching those games just because you're not playing against good players. I mean, anytime you're looking at especially defensive linemen in college, you're just not playing against good athletes. So really how it works is pretty much the best tackles on almost every college football team, if they're going to make it to the NFL, almost always going to play guard. So if you're not seeing if you're not seeing an interior defensive lineman beat guards in college versus good teams, they're probably not going to be a good pass rusher in the NFL versus guards in the NFL. Probably. I mean, it's possible that he puts it all together, but I just don't really know if he has that amount of quickness and that amount of agility to kind of be that really good 3-tech that the Lions are looking for. I actually see Skylar Gill-Howard as more of a defensive end, and I guess we'll have to see, but that's kind of just what I see with this tape. I feel like he's actually a really high effort guy. You'll see some of these plays where he's just like running it down, quickly beating the block and getting there. He moves pretty well for a guy that's 280 pounds, no question. Here's another play he's making versus the run. It's going to be 71. I think the center trying to block him does a really good job on that one. And here's another one crossing all the way to get the quarterback on this keeper play. Not going to happen. And you just see a decent amount of quickness on these ones and also diagnostic. He just quickly knows what's going on. He has the ability to get there on these plays. And yeah, this is just like a screenplay, but he does run it down, and that's just kind of impressive for a 280-pound guy. So yeah, Skylar Gill-Howard has some pretty nice plays like that where he's shedding blocks in the run game and showing high effort, chasing down their ball carrier, and also showing off a decent amount of quickness getting across the field on some of those plays. And yeah, a 5-second 40 for someone who's going to play on the defensive line is not terrible, and I'm kind of sick of NFL analysts saying that's too slow. I mean, it really is just about how quickly do you get off the ball, and you can't be terribly slow. And I do think a lot of the other stuff is instinct and the ability to diagnose and get there. And yeah, the rest of the game versus Utah, Skylar Gill-Howard, he did try quite a bit of these inside moves and like try to get around the guards that they had for Utah, but he didn't really have any quick wins. Probably like maybe 10 or 15 times he had a nice one-on-one. It just didn't really win. And also got completely locked up versus the tackles. I mean, Utah had 2 offensive tackles getting taken in the first round, so that's no surprise. Those guys are good. But yeah, I did think watching the tape, I saw more of a run defending edge. We'll have to see, but that's probably what he's going to be on the Lions, I would think. And they also brought in Tyree West out of Tennessee in the 7th round, who is probably more of a run defending edge, but wasn't nearly as impressive as Skylar Gill-Howard to me. But yeah, probably going to compete for the same position, and we'll have to see how many defensive ends the Lions actually carry, because you already have Derek Moore, Aiden Hutchinson, you have Hassenine, who they drafted last year, you got Gill-Howard, who I think would be more of a D end. I could be wrong, but I just think that's the way it's going to go. And then Tyree West as a 7th rounder, probably not going to make the team, but maybe. So yeah, overall, I really do like this draft for the Lions. I feel like they filled positions of need, but also got some value across the board. Pretty much all of these picks, I felt like they're getting a good player and not really reaching too much. There's some people that would say the Derek Moore pick was a reach, but I'm not so sure after watching a couple games, and I really do think he has all of the upside you look for. He has the power. He's just not an A tier athlete. He's kind of like a B plus, He's not, He's not no Von Miller or anything. He's not gonna warp around offense tackles. I don't think that's gonna happen. But I do think he has enough power to win versus offensive linemen in the NFL, and that is why I really do think he could be that guy opposite Aiden Hutchinson, getting some good plays and also some cleanup sacks for sure. And then you also grab a linebacker who could be a starter this year. I know that was another position a lot of fans were kind of hoping to bring in somebody. And then for me, Keith Abney in the 5th round is a very impressive pick. And yeah, the Lions just have to add to the cornerback room. I could see them signing another guy like during preseason or maybe making a trade or something, because I just don't know. I don't know if we have enough bodies at cornerback, especially guys that can actually play man coverage, because at this point, I don't know if Terrion Arnold is that guy. And it's year 3 at this point. So if he doesn't really show it, you got to do something about it, right? And maybe that is Keith Abney on the outside. But also Keith Abney could be an insanely good slot defender. So there's that as well. Kendrick Law, more of a insurance pick, I think, at kind of a slot receiver, kick returner. Maybe in a couple years he will take over as a slot if they decide to move on from Jameson. I think they would actually move Isaac Tesla outside and then put Kendrick Law in the slot potentially in a couple of years. And then Skylar Gill-Howard is more of a potential guy who might be an edge player as a run defender, and maybe he'll give you some pass rush stuff on 3rd and very long from the interior, but I'm not so sure about that. And then Tyree West is just another run defending edge. So yeah, for me, I really do feel like the Lions killed it this draft across the board. They just brought in value in a lot of players who are going to probably see significant snaps this year. I think definitely those top 4 picks are going to be starters probably. And then we'll have to see if Kendrick Law does anything more than just return kicks in the first year, or if he actually does compete with Greg Dortch for snaps. That's possible, but not a guarantee. And yeah, it is a pretty exciting draft. I do think a lot of Lions fans are watching the film and seeing how a lot of these players could immediately make an impact on this team. And that is what we need. We do need depth, and we need a rejuvenation of youth on this team, because it's been a couple years since we've had a good draft, and it's about time we have another good one. So hopefully this is the one. Definitely really excited about this draft, and we'll have to see how it goes. I'm going to be really pumped about this season. Yeah, for the Lions, it really is. We are in win now mode. We don't have time to develop. So hopefully some of these guys can come in and do well right away. I'm really excited about this draft, definitely. And yeah, I feel a lot better than I did last year. That's for sure. All right, that's pretty much all I have for this one. Detroit Lions 2026 draft. For me, it is definitely a highly graded one. I don't know if you would say an A or a B plus or whatever, but I really do feel like they filled needs. They didn't really reach too much. And I do like a lot of the players they took. And that's pretty much all I have. Thanks for watching.